Okay, hello everybody. Hello everybody, and welcome to this talk that I entitled with the very specific title, licenses. You see the program, the title is only licenses. So I decided to change the title to license, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the code, because I think the license title only is not so catchy, you know. Well, first of all, who am I? I'm this extremely handsome guy with an extremely professional shirt. My name is Pablo García, and I'm a lecturer at the University of Granada. I'm from the world of the computer science and engineering. I'm not an astrophysicist, as most of you, and I don't know anything about quasars and wavelengths and all that stuff. Oops, this is the middle. Okay, I do research actually in artificial intelligence, in video games, distributed algorithms, and that. But currently, I'm the head of the Office for Free Software of the University of Granada. That is an office centered in teaching and doing technical support to anything related with free software at the University of Granada. Okay, so what is this talk about? First, well, it is called licenses, so I'm going to talk about licenses and how to choose a license, because, you know, there is a lot of licenses actually. And the question is, are they compatible? What about if I take this piece of code with a license and another piece of code with this another license? Can I combine? Okay, let's see if we can and how to check that. Well, first of all, we already had a lot of information in this school about how to automatically download. Manu told us to use the requirements.p file to get our requirements, and that we get a lot of packages, a lot of code from here and there, but we didn't mention about the problem of the licenses. In fact, I'm going to ask you: do you floss? I mean, not floss in your teeth, but do you know what floss means? Another question, is the same open source than free software? What do you think? Well, you are saying no because I'm asking that, so probably the answer is no. Okay, yes. Well, they're not the same. Even people think usually, free, well, it's open, everything is free, so you don't have to pay for that, or open source. But we'll see. Actually, no. The acronym floss is well, people used to use these both terms, free software and open source, under the same acronym, floss. Well, what is the L there? Free software, open source is FOSS, not floss. Well, the problem is the word free. In English, free means several things. It's free as a bird, but also free as a beer. So they added the L there to add the word libre in Spanish, actually. So it's free libre to make that distinction. Free as a bird, and open source. But we'll talk about this later. Okay, do you know probably a lot of free and libre open source software? There is a lot already. This school we learned about examples. Well, in the real day, there is a lot of free and open software, Linux, GUI, MySQL, Moodle, there's a lot. Even parts of Android, not the whole Android, but parts of it. Even Firefox, there is a lot. I use the same slides I used to show to my students. That's the reason I put these examples here. Okay, there is a lot of free and libre open source software in science. There's so many examples in this school that I'm going to skip this slide too. And when I give this talk to my students, I usually try to combine then the benefits of using floss in academia. Well, I'm going to skip this slide too, because we already discussed it a lot in this open school, mostly related with the whole open science concept. But also from maybe we always discuss, I think, about in the academia, where I try to encourage my students to release free software, because they are good for them. It is good for them because they will get a good portfolio. Companies will see. So actually, in computer science and computer engineering, many of the companies don't ask for your CV; they ask for your GitHub. So companies are looking for your GitHub. I always encourage my students, you should do more open source or free software projects with your friends, with your colleagues, and put that there in a portfolio. You are like an artist. An artist have a portfolio of images, photographs, but your portfolio is your code. So it also generates a community. Like actually, the open science community is huge, and the free software and open source community are extremely huge too. Okay, so Pablo, we are going to release our stuff. So what should we do? Okay, from the beginning, as has been said in previous talks here, use a forge from the beginning, GitHub, GitLab, even your own forge in your server, in your building or whatever. I added this extra step with the software heritage after Roberto's talk the other day. But also you have to choose an adequate license. How to choose that? Okay, should I care for the license or not? Because, okay, NumPy, import pandas, import scikit, I mix everything, blah, blah, and from here, and this, here's my final product. Will it be legal to distribute it? Okay, what are license? In fact, there are contracts. You can create your own license for your software, but usually people choose from established set already tested. Okay, you can create a license called, I don't know, the Pablo license. You can add a file describing what you can do and what you can't do. For example, when you install Windows or any other program, do you accept the license? Yeah, just next. You're accepting the license. Do you know that a license can include permission to use in different territories? For example, you cannot use Windows in Cuba, for example, because the license says you cannot use this software in Cuba, North Korea, and other enemies of the United States. You know, because well, they are a private company; they can do that. Or you know that you install an Adobe product, the license also explicitly says you cannot sue Adobe Enterprise in any. The license for Adobe says that you cannot sue the Adobe company. Okay, well, everybody can create a license, but I don't need a license. I won't put a license in my code. I just want to share the code. Well, if there is no license with your code by default has copyright. You cannot even execute the code. You can see the code, but you cannot modify, distribute, even execute the code. So you have to put a license explicitly saying the things you can do with your code. So I have an argument with a student that shared in GitHub a project. I want to share this project to the world. You should add a license. No, I just want that everybody can use my code. Yeah, but you need a license explicitly saying that you can use my project, my code. So there is a lot of examples. Depends on a lot of things. Which one to choose? You know, have you heard about some of them? PSD, GPL, AGPL, Creative Commons. Maybe the most famous is Creative Commons because it can be applied for photographs, for data. But in the software world, you should use a specific, because you are not going to execute a photo. Photo don't have code. Maybe this the code that you are going to execute, it has something nasty inside and that. So the software licenses are different from the license used in other media. Okay, there is a lot. I also added that one with the W. Well, sorry for the thing I'm going to say. This license is called do whatever the fuck you want with this DTF license. And practically, because you can create any text you want, this license, some projects have this license. Do whatever the fuck, you want with this code. Okay, then Pablo said, okay, I see there is a lot of licenses, but how to choose the most adequate one? Well, for example, it depends on the community. If you're developing for something related with Apache, probably they will want to use their Apache license. If you are you're working to develop something for the GNU community, they will encourage you to use the GNU license. Okay, even depending on this on the software of the technology you are going to use, or Rust or NPM, they encourage you to use the license their community use to avoid conflicts mostly. Okay. Okay, but also depends on the type of data, on the type to share. It's not the same to share a photograph than even a font or hardware or software. Okay, so, well, if we are going to share, to release some data and media like photographs, music, even data sets, the usual recommendation is to use Creative Commons. There are 4 versions of Creative Commons already. Creative Commons exists since more than 15 years, more than that. And probably you know about them. You probably have choose some time for when you plug into Zenodo or other repository. You choose this license. But from the latest version, the 4.0 version, you cannot use for software. In the previous years, some people were using for software because software is so different than other kind of media. They, from the last version, they say, please don't use for software. Okay, I have to breathe because I'm talking so so fast. Okay, so how to choose a good CC license? Usually we got in, okay, Creative Commons the most basic one. You only want to be cited. But here we have a fancy new chooser. Okay, do you know which license do you need? No, it's the first time, so I need help for that. Okay, do you want attribution of your work? Yes, of course, because I have my vanity. I want to be cited, and everybody knows that I created this. Do you want commercial use? Yes, others can use my work even for commercial purposes. This is a tricky question. What should I do? Well, yes, I don't care about the money. I'm here for the science. Okay, do you want to allow others to remix, adapt, or build upon your work? Yes, they can adapt. And okay, but I want that everybody that use my work, they should use the same license, like a virus. It's a hierarchical license. If you use you can even, so here's the recommended license. I confirmed, I read everything, I own the authority, blah, blah, blah. I understand that CC licensing is not revocable. That's important. I put my work, a link, blah, 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 blah. And they will generate automatically for me some code that I can post in my web or social networks or whatever. So this is my license. If I take a photo and put this to my photo, if you want to use, you can print posters with my photo. You can sell your poster with my photo. But if you modify my photo, you have to put the same license. Your poster has new stuff. The poster you have created, because you're going to distribute, has to have the same license. So I can earn money also from your poster. Okay. So, well, this is the easy part because I think everybody here knows a lot about Creative Commons. Well, we are doing a project. Usually, we can use Creative Commons also for the documentation of the project. But usually, software licenses allow. There also have versions for the documentation of the code. For example, the GNU license has a specific documentation licenses, but you can use the regular licenses for documentation. Take into account that if you put code in the documentation, it should be compatible the license using the documentation compatible with the code you are posting. Okay. Also, if you are using fonts, there is an artist here that can share that they want to share their fonts. They can use this license. I don't know about it because I'm not an artist. So, also, if you are developing hardware. Hardware is also a tricky thing because hardware, sometimes they have these resistor, capacitor, processors, and that, but also the firmware inside the hardware. So there are specific license for that. Recommend you to take a look to, well, actually a good recommendation is always reading the the FAQ page of every license, because it's everything. Because, you know, licenses are a very legal writing stuff there that they're only understood by attorneys. And usually looking at the FAQ in every license page will get you a more profane way to understand it. Okay, but well, I asked before the differences between open source and free software. Okay, so open is like open window, free, we say that it's like a bird. Okay, this distinction starts because, well, in the 70s, the Free Software Foundation, we mentioned at the Free Software Foundation the other days when I think it was in Mohammed, when you did the GCC version, you see this is use a GNU license. This program has been created by this guy. It's called, do you know this guy who this guy is called? Richard Stallman. Yeah, he's the founder of the Free Software Foundation, and it's a very important person because he programmed a lot of stuff we use every day, from GCC to LS to a lot of elements of the GNU operating system. You know, the GNU operating system mixed with the Linux kernel to create the GNU Linux. Because when we say Linux, actually we are using GNU Linux / Linux operating system. So they, in this foundation, they create this, they are called the four liberties. The freedom to run the program as you wish for any purpose. You know, there is some programs that they don't allow that. You cannot use this to pirate movies or something like that. The freedom to study how the program works. Access to the source code is a precondition for this. You get a software you would like to see how it's working, if it's doing something nasty in your laptop or not. The freedom to redistribute copies, so you can help your neighbor, but also here's the key, the freedom to distribute copies of your modified versions to others, and access for the source code is a precondition for this. So if I modify a code with a license of the Free Software Foundation, I also have to share the code. Okay, also like a virus, like the CC share-alike version. So they are called the four liberties, and this is the FAQ. There is a lot of questions answered here. So if you want to learn about what the FSF does, go to this link. There is also in every language, Spanish, English, in every language, because they want everybody to know about all things. Okay, so this is a very good way to address the free software. And but let's say that this is a more philosophical or ethical approach. I mean, okay, okay, but in the other side, well, there are a lot of companies like Microsoft, like Apple, that okay, this free software is cool, but I want a more practical approach. That is the open source initiative. That means that you can use the code is free, accessible, okay, but if you are using one of our licenses, you can modify the code and change the license, for example, or not giving the license at all. You can create a private program for the license. Okay, so this is a more practical approach. The first is ethical, philosophical, and the other practical. So the GNU offers this license. You can see you have permission for commercial use, distribution, modification. The contributors have right to patent private use. That means you can modify GPL code and use in your laptop, whatever you want. But when you are going to distribute these changes, you have to keep the same license. So, okay. But with the new changes about how we share our work, there are some versions. Okay, I don't want to be so strict. Okay, I'm going to prepare my software as a library, and I'm going to use the LGPL. So if you use my library, you can use the license you want. But if you modify my library, then this modified library also has to be LGPL. Or if you are using a software in a network, like an API or something like that, and you are offering the service of my program, if you modify my program, you also have to offer the source code for download or something to people that are using remotely your software. Okay, well, Apache is from the Open Software Initiative, and you can see you don't need to reveal the code. Okay, but there is even a more lax license that is MIT, that you don't have to need to reveal the code to, and you even don't have right to patent. Okay, so which one to choose? This web, choosealicense.com, is amazing because they ask you some questions, and they explain you how to use and how to apply. Okay, how they can be applied? Well, in Zenodo you can pick from the menu which license you want to use, but in the software it's a little more difficult. You usually have to add a license or compile file in the root of the project, and some licenses require you to specify the changes in different changes.txt. Or some of them, they recommend you to put a snippet in every file. Okay, in GitHub, when you create a repository, you can directly select. So I recommend everybody that is creating a new repository in GitHub, then from the day one to select the license. But here's the tricky thing. What's the problem when combining licenses? This graph here, that means that from the more permissive to the more protective, you can mix them, public domain with MIT, BSD with new, and the one in the left, in the right is the one that prevails. Okay, see, if I get something with BSD new and a page 2.0, the output will be the software artifact need to be a page. Okay, there is also this web, very useful to see the compatibility between licenses. So if I have a project that use something like AFL, and I want the output to be 0 BSD, they will get compatibility, the game, blah, 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 and you will get a report about the compatibility. But what about if we have a lot of different licenses? Well, there are some tools like this spreadsheet in Spanish, but also that you can select the input of the dependencies you are using, and you can get the output, the output of your software products. So if I have dependencies with BSD4, CPL, or GPL2, I only can set the EUPL license to this project. Okay? There is also a lot of other tools to integrate with your workflows and that, because you know when if you work with npm and you write npm install, you will download thousands of packages and thousands of stuff. You will get okay. There's software and tools that connect with your project, and they analyze the licenses of every dependency. It will generate a report saying the compatibility or not of the project. Okay, and just to finish, well, I take this text from the David Wheeler essay. Information is believed to be correct in this presentation too, but it's not a legal advice. For formal legal advice, please consult an attorney, because well, we are scientists and computer engineering and astrophysics. We don't know a lot about laws, and in every country the laws are different, and international laws are different also. Always contact with an attorney if you don't know. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy here to answer some questions.
Thank you very much, Pablo. That was beautifully explained. We have time for a couple of questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was really good.
I don't think so.
Is it working now? Yes. Okay, thank you very much for a really nice talk. I should say Richard Stallman is also a fan of astronomy. There's a GNU astronomy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, and he's always in touch. Every
exactly,
release he says he's a really big fan of astronomy. Because he actually done physics, and then he finished, he left physics PhD, and then he went to create the free software. So, so then my main comment was just the part where it was was the part where you said, well, there was a tick in the Creative Commons that you can't revoke.
Yes.
So technically, your employer can. So this is an important point, because especially for GNU, like if you don't know that, if you're not totally free, your work contract, even the students here, those that receive payment, those that receive a salary, technically your intellectual rights belong to your employer, belong to the person who's paying you, right? So technically they can, like the employer can come and say, no, this person didn't have the right to associate this license to this product because I paid them, so it's always good when you want to release something to also get the confirmation of your employer, the person who's paying you, not necessarily the institute, the university, I don't know which funding agency. Yeah, it's always good to get that for safety.
That's an important topic. Can I change my license in the middle of the development? Some licenses allow that, because you are the author of the code, you are the legal author, so you can change the license anytime. But the problem is the previous versions will keep the same. So you can change the license. Okay, I don't know, I don't want to use Apache now from now, and now I want to change to Meet. Okay, you can do it, but the previous version will still be Apache. So, but it's a very good thing to ask previously to the release to your employer, or maybe there's an office in your institution to deal with transference and that, to ask for them.
A practical question. Imagine that I'm writing a script in Python.
Yeah.
And I find a function that I need from another code, from another repository, and I just steal it and put it in my code. What should I do in that case? I'm just using a few lines of code.
Well, if there are so 3 or 4, it's complicated, because you can say, no, I wrote them by myself. You can, if I write, I am very happy, probably there is a lot of books saying I am very happy. So you can say, no, it's a coincidence.
If it's significant, it's a...
Well, if it's enough to it's clear that you actually stole from the code, you can, you can ask an attorney to go to legal.
So there's the GNU guidelines recommend just a rough thing, 15 lines. So if it's 15 lines of code with 80 character lines, if it's 15, in that case, so not much. But so if it's in that scale, like 3 or 4 lines, there's no problem. But of 80 characters, not like a 2,000 character line.
Yeah, you in that case you can there are more than 15 lines. You can ask send a cease and desist letter from your university or something like that. Okay, so you are using stolen
the point is, should I change my license, or should I mention it in the code?
No, you should change your license. So for the one more restrictive, maybe the license is compatible with yours, so you have to change. But you always, using these tools I mentioned, you should choose the one more restrictive. Or sometimes maybe you won't be able to combine, because there are no possibility to combine them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example that Javier brought up, because a lot of what we do when we're developing software, if we come across a problem, we go to, where do we go? Stack Overflow, and kind of hack around the examples that are there. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting example. Another thing is that this is probably, like for me, when I was getting started, this is probably one of the scarier things to handle, especially when your advice is speak to a lawyer, when that's probably not accessible for a whole lot of people. So do you have any advice on how to take away the scariness of dealing with licensing?
That's the thing why I changed it. I put the title, how I stop worrying about and start enjoying it. Well, I think knowing about them, just reading the facts, getting informed about the license will remove all that scary part. Because actually, there is no trick. There is no the only big legal trials and that have been between Microsoft or Sun Microsystem 20 years ago, and that. Well, there are some examples like I think the Tinkercad framework for Arduino. They used the MIT license. So I don't know if Tinkercad or the other version, they take the code, they change the license and improve it a lot, the framework, and they sell the the new version with a new license, and the Tinkercad guys were, we wanted to be free as a bird. Okay, you should have used another license, more restrictive, to avoid that. But it depends. That's the reason I always recommend people to use the LGPL, because I want people to use my software, but I don't want them to take my efforts and get. Well, it depends on the person, and also depends on your university, how your university wants to deal with that.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I think you have answered my question, because you said you can change the license at some point.
Yeah.
But can you license which has a time horizon that like 2 or 3 years, and then
Yes. You can create your own license.
already-
And saying you cannot use this code from 2022 to 2024. You put that in your license. You call it.
Okay, so this is something that can.
Yeah, it can be done because the license is a contract.
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Sorry, so then in that case, are you taking a standard license and modifying it?
No.
Oh.
If you modify it, then you can use the same text, but you cannot say that this is a GNU license. You can. Well, it's tricky because the text is also under a license. Well, I don't know, but you can take ideas from some licenses and write your own license. But you can, if you modify the GNU license, you cannot call I'm using GNU license because you already modified it. So, but you can create your own license or for example, you can say this, my license says that from this year to this year, you cannot use that, but from 2025, the license will be MIT. You can do that. And then from 3 years from now, people will use will be added to that specific license.
Maybe I can just add one other comment to the really nice talk and the exciting discussion, is that these licenses are only for copy pasting. So if you literally copy paste a full text, this applies. It's not a patent. License is different from patent. Is an idea. License is an implementation. So for example, for the Stack Overflow question, when you find an answer on Stack Overflow, well, just rewrite it in your own language. It's also a good experiment, learning education, that when you find a good answer, you can copy paste it, but you'll never learn. And you may fall into these license pitfalls. So a good academic will not just copy paste, will learn, will study, and then implement it in your own way.
Exactly.
It's not a patent. They haven't, if they register a patent for that idea, that's another issue that you can almost be sure no one in software in Stack Overflow has patented the idea.
I'm going to add that to the presentation.
Yeah.
Ooh, don't forget it.
Yeah.
Nice comment.
Yeah, because I think you knew I had a lot of these discussions.
So, and there is also one more thing to consider when we are talking about the licenses. Many times there are institutional mandates that are telling us what licenses we should be using. So in many cases, you just don't need to worry. You just need to find out what your university or institute is telling you to do. For example, in our case, CSIC is telling us that we should all open data. And this is a mandate. What's data? Maybe it's a different discussion. For example, is code data? Is it data? This is maybe a discussion, or maybe you can discuss what was the intention of the people writing the mandate. But at least pure data, in our case, we have this mandate to make it open. So we have this suggestion to use, for example, CC licenses. If we are talking about papers or documents, we are asked to use CC BY. So we get credit. This is important for the institution to be able to track the impact of the research. But the incompatibilities of the licenses is also very important. And if I may, I just can give an example in astronomy, something that happened within the virtual observatory community regarding the incompatibilities. For example, some standards were using CC BY license, And there were software that, for example, for VO platforms that were developed for under Debian environment. So this is a more open license, and they were having problems because these licenses were incompatible. So they were asking for a change in the licenses for the standards. And the standard, are they data? Should they be using CC? Creative Commons licenses? Probably not. They are not data, they are not software, they are something in between. So it's complicated. So if we are not aware of this, of the implications of using one license or another, it can have a big impact in the future. But hopefully, and this is important, we can change the license at any time. So that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We are already going over time, but this is a very interesting discussion. So thank you for sticking and bearing with us. Is there any final quick question that we can take before going to lunch?
I'm going to put stickers there with the Turing Way ones from the office from C Software. So you can put in your laptop, and the more stickers you have, the faster it gets, and more protected also. So.
Okay, one final question from Ruben, yeah.
Side note, and to add more noise to the to the discussion, also beware about the name of your code. I mean, you have to check in intellectual property if that name is taken, because then they can fire.
Thank you. Okay, I think the session is down. Let's thank Pablo again. I think there are some announcements from
yes, just before leaving, I just wanted to mention that in the discussion session, it will be the last session of the day of the school. You should bring if a laptop or your mobile phone, because we will be using a tool that is called Mentimeter, and it will allow all people to interact. So we will be showing some questions, and all of you will be able to answer live, and we will see the answer, and we will be discussing the results and the opinions. We will have a panel also. So we wanted to make it very interactive. There will be some provocative questions, of course. Let's hope that you enjoy this part of the session. Yeah, Marcos, you want to? Yeah, it's just to access to a web. So it's very easy. I mean, there is no dependencies, there is no restriction. So just access a web, type a code, like a 6 digits code, and that's all you will be in. So there is no tutorial needed. Okay. Apart from that, we very soon we will share all the recordings from the school. We are also collecting all the presentations to make it available for you. Apart from those that are already in Slack, but Slack sometimes things are lost. So that's all. Let's go for lunch and see you later. I think we are back in 2:30, right?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to stop sharing. Okay, because.